Hey guys, today I've got 3 words for you, Cacio e Pepe. If you're not already familiar with these, then let me give you a clue. They translate to cheese and pepper, and they're widely associated with one of Italy's most iconic dishes of all time. If you've never had this before, then today is your lucky day, because today we're making pasta. But not just any pasta, no. We are making Cacio e Pepe. But before we get any deeper, let us quickly examine the blueprint of a traditional Cacio e Pepe. Amongst others, there are 2 key factors to this pasta's success. Number 1. The sauce. Cacio e Pepe goes with virtually no added ingredients such as tomatoes, cream or butter that you would normally use to make a pasta sauce. Instead, it relies entirely on the starch released within the pasta water during cooking to make a cheesy sauce, using Pecorino Romano, which is Italian cheese made of 100% sheep's milk. Now, the starch released in the pasta water during cooking is essential to achieving a smooth and stable sauce. The more water we cook our pasta in, the lesser the starch concentration, and thus it will produce a less stable sauce. This is why for this recipe we're going to avoid cooking our pasta in a large amount of water in a separate pot. Instead, we're going to do everything in the same utensil. That's right, less cleaning. This way all of the starch will remain within the sauce. And the second key factor is the pepper. The pepper plays a vital part in that it cuts through the cheesy richness of the pecorino, providing you with a refreshing peppery kick in the face. This is why it's important that we use the right amount, otherwise we risk it not being present enough or it blowing our heads off. But let's just start cooking and everything will make much more sense. To the kitchen! Which is just behind me, so I'll need to switch. To the kitchen! Since this pasta comes together very quickly, it's helpful to have everything prepped in advance. For these purposes, we're setting aside 2 grams of half a teaspoon of salt and 2 grams of 1 teaspoon of coarsely ground black pepper. I find it's easiest to measure out a teaspoon of peppercorns and give them a light crush in a pestle and mortar, or under a heavy skillet, but you could certainly use a pepper mill instead. Just make sure you end up with more or less the right amount of pepper. And since it would be difficult to make cacio e pepe without the cacio, we're grating 30 to 40 grams each of Pecorino Romano and Parmigiano Reggiano. Like I mentioned earlier, this pasta is traditionally made entirely with Pecorino Romano, but I do prefer a more subtle flavor profile, and that's why I substitute half of the pecorino for parmesan. Feel free to play around with the percentages to find what suits you best. You lastly need about 1 liter of room temp tap water in a vessel suitable for pouring, and that is pretty much it for our prep. But before we start cooking, a quick note on cookware options. Since everything is happening within the same utensil, it's important to pick one that has enough room to hold your water and pasta at the same time. I'm using a wide saute pan, but you could alternatively go for the good old stock pot or a large frying pan. We are only using a couple of ingredients here, so we want to really make them sing. Let's start with awakening our pepper from its shelf life slumber by toasting it over low heat until we can feel its beautiful aroma coming back to life. This will only take a minute. We're then going to stop the toasting process by dumping in about half of the water we prepped earlier, or roughly half a liter. Go ahead and add your salt to the water and bring the temp to high. When you feel the rolling boil, add 125 grams or a quarter of a pack of pasta. This should be enough for one. If you're using a long type of pasta and your pan or pot isn't wide enough, let the pasta boil for a few seconds and then bend it in. We're cooking our pasta to al dente, making sure that we stir every so often, as to prevent it from sticking to the bottom of the pot. During cooking, based on your specific pasta, you may need to make water additions to get it cooked to your desired stage, but make sure you only add a little at a time. The goal here is to control the amount of water that we have left in the pot when the pasta is done cooking. The more water you have left, the more sauce you can produce, but also the more cheese you need. Much like making a risotto, keep making small additions to maintain a shallow level of water until your pasta is cooked to your desired preference. When you've reached that point, you should have a shallow coating of starchy water on the bottom of the pan. If you feel that you're low in residual water, now is a good point to add a splash. Vice versa, if you have too much left, ladle some of it away. At this stage, we're going to kill the heat, add our grated cheese mixture and begin stirring vigorously. Nothing fancy, but make sure you're moving everything around. Movement along with the starch we have in the pot are the 2 key factors to our cheese and water emulsifying into a silky smooth sauce. If at any point your cheese starts to clump up, don't panic. Turn the heat back on medium and resume stirring until you achieve a velvety texture. Time to serve our pasta. I'm using these large tweezers, but a carving fork works wonders as well. Gently grab and lift your pasta and swirl it into a ladle so that you create a neat pasta nest that you can place in your plate of choice. Finish with some extra grated parmesan or pecorino and a few cracks of freshly ground black pepper and we are done. Visually, it's a very appealing dish, and even though we only used a couple of ingredients, the pasta has a level of complexity to it. But let us taste. Texture-wise, the pasta still has a bit of a friendly bite to it, while the silky sauce has coated each strand of pasta beautifully. There's an almost unexpected contrasting harmony there between the funky pecorino, the complex parmesan, and the refreshing smack in the face you get from the pepper. It's a pasta that only takes a couple of ingredients, but certainly makes the most of them. Go ahead and prove me wrong. Make your own.